Reality? The men who built the pyramids weren't slaves. Most were paid workers, who got sick, injured, and sometimes died for a king they'd never meet. Ancient Egypt. Golden. Glorious. Eternal. This is the civilization of pharaohs, pyramids, and gold masks that still amaze us today. But behind every golden statue, there's a reality that's far darker than the museums show you. Let's start with the pyramids themselves. For decades, movies showed us whips, chains, and slaves dragging stone blocks under a desert sun. The real story is stranger. Most pyramid workers were Egyptian farmers, paid in food and beer, working during flood season when their fields were underwater. It wasn't slavery. It was survival. But that didn't mean it was easy. Workers lived in cramped camps. Injuries were common: crushed limbs, heat exhaustion, infections with no real medicine. Archaeologists have found skeletons with healed fractures, evidence of brutal, repetitive injury. They built one of history's greatest wonders, with broken bodies, for a king who would never know their names. Now let's talk about mummification, because the real process is far stranger than you think. To prepare a body for the afterlife, embalmers first removed the organs, one by one. The brain was pulled out through the nose using a hook tool. The heart, however, was left in place. Egyptians believed it was needed for judgment in the afterlife. The body was then dried using natural salt for 40 days, before being wrapped in hundreds of meters of linen. The whole process could take up to 70 days. And the smell? Historians believe embalming workshops were some of the most unbearable places in the ancient world. But here's where it gets darker. In early Egyptian history, when a pharaoh died, it wasn't just his body that was buried. Servants, guards, even pets were sometimes buried alongside him, believed to serve him in the afterlife. Some historians believe many were buried alive. Entire households disappeared into the tomb with their king, not by choice, but by duty. This practice eventually stopped, replaced by small statues meant to serve the pharaoh symbolically. But for centuries, being close to the king didn't guarantee safety. Sometimes, it guaranteed the opposite. So what was it actually like to be the pharaoh himself? Surely that part was glorious? Not exactly. A pharaoh held absolute power, but absolute power came with absolute paranoia. Many pharaohs lived in constant fear of assassination, palace coups, and rivals within their own family. Food tasters were common. Guards were doubled. Trust was rare even among close relatives. And speaking of family, Egyptian royal bloodlines were often kept pure through marriage between siblings or close relatives. This was meant to preserve divine bloodlines. The result? Genetic disorders, deformities, and weakened health passed down through generations of royalty. Tutankhamun himself, the boy king everyone recognizes from that golden mask, likely suffered from multiple genetic conditions, walked with a cane, and died around age 19. The golden mask hides a body that modern science shows was fragile, weak, and likely in chronic pain. So let's go back to where we started. A pyramid built by free workers, not slaves, who broke their bodies anyway. A mummification process built on ancient science, but soaked in suffering. Servants buried beside kings, not out of honor, but obligation. And pharaohs who ruled in gold, while living in fear and fragile health behind it. Ancient Egypt wasn't just golden. It was complicated, brutal, and far more human than the museums ever show you. So next time you see a pharaoh's golden mask, remember the real story buried beneath it. If this opened your eyes to the real history behind the myths, subscribe, because every week, we expose what history class never told you. And comment below, which ancient civilization should we expose next?